Thank you, Leslie and Dave, for joining us today for this edition of the Reference Desk. My name is Jonathan Edwards, and we use this reference desk just so that the library can show what is going on in and outside of the institution. Today, we have the new leadership that is helping guide us through the library during these unique times. I'll give them some time to introduce themselves. Where are you guys from originally, Dave and Leslie?
Leslie, you want to go first?
Sure. I grew up in New Jersey for part of my time. My dad was in the military, and so we traveled around a little bit, Army brat, but grew up for the most part in South Jersey, and then came to Philadelphia in my late 20s.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't realize that Leslie was an Army brat. I'm an Air Force brat. And we traveled around as well too. But I was born in Philly, lived in West Philly as well as Southwest Philly. Went to Bryant Elementary School, Tilden Middle School, and spent my high school years in Japan. But through all the travels, I've come back home to Philly. So I've been here for the last 20 years.
Can you guys tell us a little bit about the roles that you guys are now stepping into at the library?
Sure, I'll go first. Right now, I'm the interim CEO for the foundation. That occurred in the August timeframe, and as I shared with the board leadership, I recognize the void that has been left, and willing to step in until they're able to find the appropriate candidate to fill the position. But in the meantime, trying to continue to steer the foundation in the right direction in the midst of all the challenges that we're facing now.
I'm the interim director for the library. Happened roughly around the same time as with Dave. I was an emergency interim, then there was a search that went on, a short search for the interim, and I went through an interviewing process and did get the position. A lot of the work for me is around staff, around library operations, working with our boards, and then trying to help steer us through this pandemic, and also through our areas around systemic racism. Specifically around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and helping to, get the library going in the right direction.
Excellent, thank you for that. And before we get into some of our other questions, where you guys can talk more about what you guys are doing, your roles, and kind of advancing the institution, just some fun stuff. Tell us about, are you guys reading anything special right now?
So I'm reading a heavier kind of book right now. It's called Evicted by Matthew Desmond. If you haven't read it, it's a very good read, and it follows the lives of some families through them being evicted from their homes and the process, and it really illustrates a lot that's going on now in the country and what people are facing. Even more so now because of the pandemic, but it's just an ongoing issue in this country that really needs to be dealt with. And this is, something that I think, it really has a lot of, hard information, but it's definitely information that needs to be read and shared. So I'd recommend that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm also reading a book that's quite heavy right now. It's called The Tears We Cannot Stop by Pastor Mike Dyson. And it deals with the current racial tensions in the country, and actually preaching a sermon. He says a sermon to white people. And it really digs deep into the disparity and the lens from which the Black culture is viewed from a white perspective. And it's, I've only gotten halfway through it, but it's a pretty hard-hitting book. But it speaks a lot of truth as to the history and where we are today relative to the racial tension. So that's one that I'm digging into right now. And then, that's the secular things that I deal with. But then, in the ministry that I'm involved with, I'm also dealing with a book called Missional Leadership, which really starts to talk about, how does the church engage in the community? Because the world is changing so much. That's another one that's occupying my time right now in terms of how to be more missional, being more intentional about engaging the community with the church. That's where I'm spending my time in addition to work.
I'm sure when you're in a unique leadership role, in a unique time frame like this, being able to kind of teach your mind and your heart temperance and preparation to navigating through stuff is important. So what can you guys say inspires your work at the Free Library of Philadelphia?
I would say because of my journey, right? I started out in the corporate private sector for a lot of years, not to date myself, and then I moved to a smaller company, came back to Philly, and I still felt unfulfilled. I mean, I had done a lot in my career, but there was still a void there, and that void had to do with just impacting people's lives. So, what inspires me, what keeps me at the library, what made me want to come here at the beginning, in the very beginning, was the fact that I could see the impact that the library has on the city. I could sense where I could play a role in that. So that's what it inspires me when I look at not only what's actually happening, but also the potential of what the library can do for the city.
I'd say what inspires me every day, or what gets me up in the morning to make me want to come to work every day, is the people and what the staff do on a daily basis, working with the public, the amount of programs that they do. And I have a long history with the library dating back to my nonprofit career and early childhood education, and just utilizing so many programs that the library had to offer. And, staff are just so creative and so knowledgeable about everything within the library and what the library has to offer to Philadelphians. And it's just such a rich resource. And, daily, I'm really just in awe of what staff are able to do for the public.
If we can look at this, kind of considering the library in one word, we're 54 branches, we run close to 20,000 programs annually. How would you describe the library in one word?
For me, that would be community.
Yeah, and for me, that would be the equalizer. I just really, a lot of people think about the movie or the TV series. There's some truth to that because, when you come to the library, guess what? The rich have no say over the poor, and the strong have no say over the weak. And it is a great equalizer. So that one word, basically, for me, it sets the level playing field for anybody walking through the door.
How do you think staff, administration will be able to work together to be even more creative as we look forward to 2021 with programming being virtual, or I guess the unforeseen things?
I think it's the sky's the limit. I think that we have been put into a situation, just like other people across the country, to figure out a situation that we're in and how to keep our jobs and country moving. And how with the library, how are we going to engage, people that utilize our services, and then how are we going to have staff be able to do that? And I think that, moving forward down the line, where we get to a point where, we may be able to come back in the library, depending on what that is, I don't think we're going to abandon things that we've tried. And I think that it would be important to take a look at that and to see what we would be able to continue to do and offer things in multiple ways, because we know that people take in information differently. And so being able to offer the information, from the library in multiple ways is a benefit to Philadelphians.
Yeah, and I think going forward, oftentimes out of the worst of situations comes the best. And I think that the potential has been unleashed in our staff, and the creativity and the innovation that was always there was forced to come out in the midst of the storm that we're in right now. And I just I think that there's new freedom found in them being recognized for their creativity and innovation and appreciated for it, and actually wanting to do more. So although no one would write the script this way to put us through a pandemic, on the other side, I believe you'll see even more creativity, more innovation, because now we recognize what's been dormant all these years.
Can you guys speak to how two people of color are able to represent the progress of staff at the institution?
I think that, well, first, in terms of being in the position, there's a level of sensitivity that's needed during this season. And I think that's what we are able to bring to the organization. Sensitivity from a staff perspective, and also, being able to relay that sensitivity to the boards as well, so that the gap is not as big as it would be if it was not a person of color in these positions. So, this is a season where that's deeply needed, because the library is no different than the rest of the country, where there's a gap in cultural understanding, a gap in understanding the impact of being, discriminated against. And so, us being in this position now sort of closes that gap a little bit. Leslie's experience and my experience in life are different than, your experience, Jonathan. But I think for the most part, we know from which we came. So therefore we can speak to the challenges that we face relative to some of the DEI issues. So
I think that it definitely has not gone unrecognized for both Dave and I, that, we're the first. And certainly we bring all our experiences to bear. We both have a complete body of work, that came with us, to where we are now. And, to hear some staff and people outside of the library, just really responding, in a way that I think caught me off guard a little bit too. That, hey, you're a Black woman, in this interim role, and Dave, you're a Black man in an interim role here. And, it once it sunk in, I was like, yeah, right. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me, because of that. And I do mentoring, and Dave does too, outside of the library. I have a couple of young women that I mentor, and just to see, the look on their faces when it happened, and to look at my daughter, and how proud she was, and my son, saying, it's your time, this is your moment, you're just warming up. Certainly, made me just realize, that this really matters. And for staff to see someone in these two positions that look like them, is huge. Growing up, and Dave and I can speak to, that not being the case in so many, places. We didn't see people that look like us in different, higher level management positions. And so, to be here at this moment, is incredible, you know, and just knowing that this is our assignment right now, you know, is big. It's huge. And I'm grateful, and I know Dave is too, for the opportunity.
As you look back on your time with the library and where you guys are right now with your role, what would be one seed you would like to be able to plant into the institution that it can hold into the future?
That's a tough one.
So I saved it for the last.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with being able to pivot and being flexible and adaptable. Because without all of that, going through this time now feels like it would be very difficult. And so I hope those are a few of the seeds to be planted.
Yeah, I would say we've been through one of the roughest years in our life. And you are still standing. And it's because you're still standing that we can become the greatest force in the city because of the people that we have working at the library and the foundation. So regardless of whatever storms we go through, regardless of whatever challenges we face, whatever trials we come up against, know that you have this potential inside of you because you're overcomers, and you've already demonstrated that. And so, you know, don't forget the broader purpose, and don't get consumed by the immediate storm, because you're special people and you play a special role at the library.
With that, Leslie, Dave, thank you so much for your time. Your leadership at the library during this unique time will truly be a historic moment. You know, challenges get to really help redefine where we can go, who we can become. So I appreciate your time, your thoughtfulness, and willing to take on the weight of moving us forward. So thank you for this interview today, and I look forward to being able to work and speak with you more in the future.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All right, take care.
Take care.